To those that have just joined us, welcome to the session. This is the MasterClass, and we are looking at how entrepreneurs can leverage EFRIS as an ERP tool. And joining us to help us discuss and get to understand this further is Madam Hafsah Seguya, and she's a tax expert from Uganda Revenue Authority. Very shortly, we'll be jumping into the discussion. But meanwhile, you can please use the chat to share with us about your company, but most importantly, what experiences do you have with EFRIS, and maybe what is it that you think is unclear that you want some enlightenment about? And then at a later stage, we'll be getting those questions and putting them to her to help us digest and get to understand things a little bit better.
Hello.
Yes, hello. We can hear you, Madam Hafsah. Good to have you.
Good to be here too. I'm sorry I delayed in another engagement that I had to end quickly, then log on here. It's unfortunate I've come in slightly after the 5 hour, but we'll see how to best deliver within the time that is available. So can I can I flash my presentation? We run through it.
All right, sure. We can definitely get into it. Thank you.
So are we all getting the presentation that I have probably put on the screen? Remember viewing it.
My side, I see it. Guys, you can let us know if you as well see it. Maybe you can say, you can use the chat and tell us if you see it. But I think they do, because
I think they do. So good evening once again. My name is Hafsah Seguya from my Uganda Revenue Authority, from the Tax Literacy Unit. This is a unit that is mandated to educate you on domestic taxes issues, to walk the journey with you, to handhold you to see that your compliance is at its best, to see how you can reduce the cost of doing business by doing most of these applications yourself, than getting somebody to do them for you and you pay them. So I was well informed that it is EFRIS that we are in here to discuss today. EFRIS is just an abbreviation for Electronic Fiscal Receipting and Invoicing Solution. It was rolled out on the 1st of July 2020. Then we went live with it on the 1st of January 2021. So ideally, we expect all the VAT registered clients to be using EFRIS, because these are the clients that have been gazetted to use the electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution. And this is definitely in law in our tax procedures code, section 73A, clearly talks about that. So I think I can move on to the next slide. I'll move on to the next slide. I don't know let me do full view so that we can ably get what I'm talking about. This is just an outline of what is in the presentation, and it clearly talks about the background of EFRIS, the evolution of e-invoicing. Invoicing is basically when you use the EFRIS platform to generate an invoice for your client. Then EFDs stands for electronic fiscal device. These devices are rolling out, we didn't have them, but after some time, we got the devices, and they are now on market. And the consultant we have with a vendor is called rank consult in Australia, and each device goes for about 1.1 million. But at the end of the day, this is an allowable deduction in your business. When you're filing your income tax returns, we are look at what is changing and what it takes to implement e-voicing or EFDs, then the scope and the benefits, because everything, as you roll it out, we have to look at benefits so that our clients are very clear of why exactly they are using it. So sorry for that, the screen had issues, it wasn't moving well, but now, okay, but now it is moving. So this is what I wanted us to probably see, sorry. Let me take you back. This is where we are. I was trying to discuss the administrative challenges that we had discovered that these are what informed why EFRIS is in place. We basically looked at the huge informal sector that contributes 51% of GDP. And if we said if we need to formalize this informal sector, then we need to go back and come up with something. And this is why we came up with EFRIS, because it requires a TIN for you to operate on EFRIS. And once you get a TIN for your business, you have started the journey of formalizing this business. We looked at fictitious refund claims. These are the claims that were coming in through VAT. So it was a little difficult for us in verifying. It was taking quite some time. But now with EFRIS, at least it doesn't take as long as it used to take, because ideally, if you're using an application that we have control over, we can know what you expensed in a particular month. We can look at your input. We have a closer look at your output, so we can ably know that this particular credit that one is claiming was actually reflected in the other party's transactions in the return template. So we also looked at unfair business competition, and we said if we introduce EFRIS, then whoever is in business and probably didn't pay taxes, there was some smuggling, there was this and that. So we wanted to see how to level the ground by even looking at addressing the illicit trade that goes on here and there. So ideally, if we all ask for this invoice or this fiscalized document, then one who is in illicit trade will not be able to get clients to trade with, because the in thing is they'll be asking for a fiscalized document. We looked at the narrow tax register, implying that if we are all on EFRIS, then those that we are probably serving also need to go on EFRIS, also need to register their businesses. That means I'll be widening the tax base by bringing in more of the clients that do business onto the register. Then at the end of it all, everybody will take their fair share of taxes. Then probably we'll be realizing a little more of revenue when we have a number of people, a wider coverage of where we are going to collect. So we also realized that there was absence of sharing government data, because and between you and me, government is the biggest spender. But when it spends, whom does it spend on? It spends while transacting with us, who probably supply it here and there, the government agencies. So we said if we share that data, probably it will help us a lot to know who was paid by government and at how much, so that everybody takes their fair share. Because in absence of sharing data, we are basically taking what you tell us in your return. And at times you might leave out some transactions, but if we have a mechanism of sharing government data, then probably URA will be at it moving forward. Then we also looked at the missing trader. In most cases, a time when you look at transactions, when you're trying to see how the transaction started and where it ended, at times you have somebody who goes missing somewhere, somehow. Either they haven't formalized their business, they haven't registered it, we don't have a TIN for them. So they go missing. So at the end of it all, if such a person is lost and is not on the radar, that means they will not contributing to national development through paying their taxes. So that is why in the introduction of EFRIS, we came up with what we call the Domestic Resource Mobilization Program, which we thought that if we mobilize revenues within the country, that is domestically, we put more efforts on that, then it will earn us a lot, because we all know when we went in COVID, most of the items coming from outside Uganda, those are the imports, were freezed at a particular time. There was no movement, there was nothing. So if that happened and a country survived, so we just survived narrowly because we have domestic taxes. So we said, why don't we actually put in more effort on the domestic taxes? But how are we going to realize that? We are going to realize it by improving on the taxpayer service, the services that we give these clients who do businesses domestically. And we need to do tax education, because creating awareness is a continuous process. This tax is not static. Each and every day there is an amendment here and there is change of procedure. And we also looked at reducing the administrative costs by seeing how EFRIS comes in. We need to provide pre-filled forms. Once our information is available here and there, we can handhold our clients. That means I'm reducing the cost of your doing business. You would have hired somebody to come and do it for you. But if URA comes in and handholds you, then you're saving on that amount of money that you would have taken out. Then ultimately, the most important goal will be maximizing revenue. If all these three are done, then ideally I'll be maximizing revenue in one or the other. That is why we call it the Domestic Resource Mobilization Program. And when you look at the Domestic Resource Mobilization Program, it was premised on three initiatives. That is the electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution. This is basically a control of invoicing and receipting. As you could receipt in your business or you could invoice, it's basically a control. How should this invoice look like? How should this receipt look like? It's a standardized mechanism. Then we also introduced a digital tracking solution, but this one, we rolled it out on the 1st of November 2029, slightly before COVID. So we thought we would give the affected parties or sectors some time to see how best they can internalize it, but that's when we went in COVID. This is basically stamping of those items that are excisable and were gazetted to be stamped. Then we also have e-tax. This is improving on service delivery, and this is an inward initiative. It's the platform we use to serve you as our clients. On my screen, I have a number of a variety of stamp shapes or stamp types to show you, because when I talk about digital tracking solution, the way I'm going to track these gazetted items that you stamp are basically requesting you who is manufacturing them or you who is in importation of these items to see that they are stamped. When should they be stamped? They should be stamped before they leave the production line of that particular entity where they are being produced or where they're being manufactured. If they're imports, we expect them to be stamped before they reach the border so that we can clear them. But when you look at these stamps, they're in different shapes. There's a reason why. The first stamp is put on tobacco. It's an excisable product. Tobacco are the cigarettes. So we just seal the pack of cigarettes so that when you want to open, you'll need to tear the pack. Then the stamp is reusable, is not reusable. Then we look at domestic excisable products like alcohol. That is the stamp that we use for that. Then imported excisable items, we have wines. The reason why you'll see this stamp is a little longer. You'll bear witness with me that most of the wine bottles have a long neck. So I expect one to apply it from down before the neck, then it will hover over the lid, then down. So that at the time of opening it, as you turn the lid, this is a paper stamp. It will definitely be destroyed. And I also have the automated stamps. When you look at soda, you look at beer, you look at some of the water bottles have automated stamps. This implies that this particular client or manufacturer has an automated system where they just included this automation, this stamping on their automation. Then we have excisable product. We have the beers. Then we have mineral water. Some of them don't have excisable. Some of them don't have automated processes. That is why they end up using paper stamps where they could probably do it a little manual than the one who has the automated system. And by the way, when one is doing the stamping, we ensure that if you do the paper stamping, you need to still go and activate these stamps. Whereas one who does the automated stamping, they are basically activated within the system because they are electronic. So this is just a global view to entice you on how the invoicing solution has moved in a number of countries. So that is what we have on screen there. But ideally here, I am trying to show you the channels or the components of e-invoicing. We have the invoicing itself, we have the EFD, then we equally have the EDC. EDC is basically for fuel stations. This is a mechanism that we introduced that we are yet to start or roll over, such that when we go to a fuel station, as you stock your fuel, your diesel, your petrol, your kerosene in the reservoirs, we'll put a device that has a memory. It has a chip that has a memory, so that we can record the number of liters that are there. So that whenever you put your gun inside a vehicle at the pump, you put the compressor gun, that means that is a sale because you're disbursing fuel otherwise, and you can't disburse it for free. So that will help us a long way in realizing how much you have probably sold as a fuel station. Then an EFD has a similar appearance like a point of sale machine. Some of you who have ever gone to supermarkets where you go and probably buy airtime, that small machine where that small paper comes out from, it is similar to that, but the only thing that it has a physical memory to save all that you have stored in and all that you have sold. Then invoicing is basically done, and you do it. You can do it via the portal. That is the most common that most of our clients use, and it's supposed issuance and storing of this invoice information. You can invoice business to business, whereby you're invoicing a fellow business person. You can invoice business to a final consumer, where you're invoicing somebody who is a final consumer. That is one who is not going to further trade. Then you can also invoice business to government, because when you're doing business with government, ideally you need to invoice all the transactions, each of the transactions that go out. But along the invoicing, when I talk about it, we have different channels. What would you call channels? These are the avenues that URA put up for you, the client, to see how best you can use this system. But it's a self-service. Initially, when we had rolled out, we had a number of them. We have the system-to-system connection. This is when you already have an existing billing or receipting system in your entity, and we don't want you to abandon it. So what we did, we accredited a number of system integrators. There are about 21, and the list is via the URA web portal, where one could choose someone who can help them integrate their system onto URA system. But mostly if you have a resident software engineer, it would be easy for you to probably do that. Then we have the URA web portal, those who have few transactions and they are not frequent. They invoice once in a while. You can use a web portal because it's a little cheaper. Then we have a client's app where you can download this app, put it on your gadget, put it on your computer, put it on your phone, then you can probably issue. But the only difference is when you put it on your phone, you may not be able to print, but you will have issued this invoice. Then same applies to USSD quick code. So we moved ahead and looked at electronic physical device. Just the meaning of it is just a machine that is designed to be used in business, to see that you can manage your business efficiently. It has controls in areas like sales analysis and stock control, and it also conforms to the requirements specified by law. Because when you're coming up with these devices, automatically we have to put into consideration what does the law say as we are trying to make such an activity happen. But under EFDs, we could have a variety. We could have the electronic tax register, the electronic fiscal printer, or the electronic signature device. But some of these we may not have them now. That is why we put a little more attention on the EFDs. So as I had initially said, these are the channels as we talked about. We have the system-to-system connection, the client app, then the web portal, and the USSD code. When I talk about web portal, it is basically going on to URA's web portal and logging in with your TIN and password. Then you start the exercise. But ideally, this is a life cycle of how EFRIS happens. When you are working in EFRIS, before you even work in EFRIS, I'll ask you, are you VAT registered? Because it is the VAT registered clients who are mandated to use EFRIS. The rest could use it voluntarily if they wish so. But when I read the law that guides us, we are basically putting more attention on the VAT registered clients. So it starts with registration. You register for EFRIS, and that is a one-off. You don't need to be doing it again. So after registration, and that is when you will continue and see how you're going to configure. Configure is when you do the coding of your goods and services. You try to identify the goods that you're dealing in or the services, because we have quite a heavy catalog on the system. Because this configuration, we looked at all the goods that you could deal in worldwide and services too. So it is a bigger variety that needs you to do it a little keen. Then after you've configured, that means you have told the system, you have told URA, look here, this is what I deal in. If I sell fruits, am I selling fruits that are processed into juice? Am I selling just raw fruits as they are from the garden? I wash and peel and sell, or I just wash and put them there and sell. So we need to be very clear, because when we are addressing EFRIS, it is basically VAT that has to come through. And as we try to come up with the EFRIS platform, we made sure we map the VAT law onto the EFRIS platform so that the system can help us give these items, these goods or services, the right VAT treatment. So after your coding or configuration, then we'll request you to put your stock onto the EFRIS platform. The way you've been managing your stock, you just put it in a corner somewhere in your room. You may not even know. It's not easy to establish that something has gone missing. Yet, when you're stocking on the system, you tell the system that if I'm selling probably clothes, maybe children's clothes, I have these dresses in purple. I have these dresses for 2-year-old. I have this number of dresses for 10-year-old. So it is basically as simple as that can help you monitor your stock from time to time. Then we have, after each all, then that's when we'll have the invoice issuing and management. You do it online. But the only provision that we give for online mode is when you have the system to system. Because when you're using system to system, it has an offline mode. That's the way we designed it. Because system to system works well with entities that are normally busy. The entities that are normally busy, like supermarkets, you may not be able to have time to keep waiting in the queue when probably network is shaky or something, or the system is a little off. So we give you a provision to invoice offline, so that when the system goes back, you just update it, update all you've done onto the system. But after that, we also created a provision where you can validate the invoice. Because one might have given you an invoice, but how sure are you that this invoice was authentic? Still, the EFRIS platform has where you validate the invoice. And in the event that it doesn't validate, we give you a leeway or a window to see that you can report that non-compliance. Then at the end of the day, you can even have reports that can give you the number of invoices, the data that you have collected. We have a number of reports that you get on EFRIS. One, to give you this data in real time, and two, when you're filing for VAT, it is okay to just go to the report and export it to Excel, then see how best you can take it to your template for VAT and file. And ideally, when you're on EFRIS still, you can do a declaration comparison, because when I am looking at EFRIS, it's basically VAT. So when I look at your EFRIS or your VAT returns that you have pushed to URA using EFRIS data, I should imagine there should be a relationship in between VAT and income tax. So that's where my declaration comes in. Same applies to data monitoring. You definitely monitor your data from time to time. This is done back end by URA because we are most interested in these transactions. Then here we have the system architecture. This is just an impression of how it works when you're on system to system. On the left-hand side of the screen is where we see the taxpayer, and that is you. Then on the right-hand side, I see URA. So I'm trying to show you how the data moves from the seller's bit at point 1 when we have transaction information. It will move through where you see data transmission in 2, and as it's moving, it is encrypted. That is the control we put on this data. We encrypt it so that it cannot be readable or hiked into. Then it comes to an authorized server at the URA side. So once it's here, we save the data, and we save the data on the invoice and the receipt. Then we push it back. As we are pushing it back, we try to decrypt it. It's decrypted at the end when it reaches the taxpayer server, so that it can go back in readable format. Then at this particular time, a client is free to issue this invoice at their side, and they are free to make a print of that particular invoice, either by paper, or they can just send it to the client and they print on their own. Then ideally, this information is still pushed to an email where it creates a notification from your side to this particular client. So what you see on your screen now is the different methods that you can use. If you're using the portal, this is what you will require. You will require all that. You will require power, you'll require computer, an active e-tax account. We will require internet, but you won't require VPN. An offline mode doesn't come in handy. You do not need to develop any software. So this is what you will need to look at and see whether this can work for you or system to system works for you. Because if we are in system to system, that means everything is required here. So we have the client's app, and in the client's app here we have, we will need all that except VPN and software development. And by the way, software development is only needed when you're doing a system to system connection. Yes, we have the USSD code. You may not use a computer, you may not need it. USSD code was built basically for those who have these small phones, the ones we used to call kabiriti. It works for them on those phones. And an active e-tax account, we don't need it when you're there. We will need only power. We'll need internet. I think that's all if you're using USSD. But for EFD, you may not need a computer because the machine itself has a screen. So you'll need power, you'll need an active portal account, internet connection, and the offline mode may come in handy. So basically that is what we have. So these are some of the issues that we got when we had rolled out. And a number of our clients raised issues, and they were asking us whether this solution affects all business people. Ideally, it will affect all business people, but it is the VAT registered clients who are mandated to use it for the time being. So that is why we are basically looking at them. But ultimately, we expect everybody in business to be there. Shall this business stop connectivity or power low when power is lost? It will not stop because we have the offline mode. When your internet connectivity is lost, you can use the offline mode for those who are on system to system. Those who are not there, you can probably use the manual receipts that you used to use. But at the end of it all, when connectivity comes back, I just request you maybe within that day to make sure that you have updated the details in the manual receipts onto the system. Who will meet the cost of the EFDs or the system interface? It's the client that meets the cost of buying an EFD and the system interface. An EFD apparently costs 1.1 million. But however, the cost incurred in this particular line item, you can treat it as an allowable expense when you come to income tax. You can basically treat it like that. Who will do the maintenance of the EFDs? Definitely, when we are working with a consultant, we assign them the duty, the vendor, to do the sales, the services, and the spares. So ideally, they'll be doing all that, but at a fee, which fee still will be part of the cost that you will probably utilize in your income tax return as deductions that can help you reduce probably the amount of tax that you may be paying. Then they were asking us whether the system will support various languages. That is our dream, but we are not yet there. Apparently, we are into English only, but would want to put in a few local dialects to see how best everybody can understand the system. And then how will the data relate to URA be secured? I think this, I clearly defined it when I was showing you the system architecture, how the information moves from URA to the client's side, then back. Then we said the system will use KPIs. These are certificates, security certificates, to encrypt data during transmission, the way I showed you. Then at the end of it all, at least it will be secure to some extent. So my screen is basically showing you where we started from. We piloted, we did it in a phased approach. We started by piloting in May and June 2020. We brought the customs transactions onto the system in July 2020. Then on 1st July still, we went live by rolling out to the VAT registered clients, that is 2020. But ultimately, we expect everybody in business to be using the system, just because we needed to do it in a phased approach so that it does not create any havoc when probably our clients are receiving it. So this was our wish then, but we have done some of these. Implementation of validation checks, they're already there. As I had told you, we have a mechanism of how you can validate or authenticate your invoice or the invoice they've given you once you're in a transaction. Then we talked about procurement of local invoicing software developers. Yes, we called the local software developers those who actually had the licenses when they were developing and they had done it the right way. We called them when we were trying to see how to accredit software developers. We called some of them and probably put them on the list. Others are still putting their issues right. Then use of tax rebates and other incentives to popularize the use of invoicing. Definitely this is an inclusion. It's already in the VAT Act in section 45A, where we are looking at refunding a smaller portion back to the final consumer. In the event that you are a final consumer who has purchased items that could amount to 5 million within 30 consecutive days. So it suggests that you could file those receipts, those invoices with us, so that in the VAT component within those transactions, or that transaction, provided the total value is 5 million, the total transaction value is 5 million, we try to see how to take out the VAT component, then we refund you 5% of what you paid as VAT. So you will ask me why EFRIS? Because some of you asked us why EFRIS? What should I look out for? What is in there for me as a client? We looked at a position when we'll be reducing the cost of compliance and easing doing business through these particular initiatives. Taxpayers will be in position to track and validate business transactions in real time for efficient business management. As I showed you how you're going to validate these transactions, there is a provision in EFRIS. We promise the clients a pre-filled return for VAT. That's what we promised our clients moving forward. But ideally, this will only happen when all of us are using the EFRIS platform. If we are not using it, it won't happen. So this won't happen if some of us are not on, if some of us who are gazetted are not using EFRIS, because the only way I can populate this pre-filled return is when you transact on EFRIS. Ideally, your sale is one's purchase and the other one's purchase is your sale. So that is the only way I can bring that dream to reality of a pre-filled return. So that is why I urge all of us who are in business and VAT registered to ensure that all the transactions that you handle go through EFRIS. Then also looked at shortening the audit process and return examination, in that we will not need to ask for the physical invoices the way we've been doing it. We can use the system to see that we do the analysis that is required. And this, I think, will take a shorter time because we manage the system and we can equally access it. Then also making fair assessments of taxpayers. So we anticipated a situation when we will do less of the estimations, because if I have everything with me, I have your sales and sales position with me, your purchases, and probably how you expense, then it will be easy for me to know what kind of assessment may come through. Then also looked at faster processing of refund claims, because initially the refund claims that have been coming through have been taking quite some time, because we need to verify here and there. And when it comes to exiting tourists, it has been a little inconveniencing to them, because at times they end up being delayed, their travels being delayed, or even leaving behind what they had to get back as refund. So all this information we anticipate will be on the system, so it will be easier for us. But ultimately, we are looking at better record keeping, because what informs the assessment that you're paying is basically the records you keep for your business, because they'll inform you and they'll help me and you pay the right assessment moving forward. So ideally, that is probably what I had as a presentation. Maybe we can enter into the session of questions. That is what I had for presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Hafsah, for the presentation. No doubt it's very detailed, and I think the entrepreneurs on the call have a lot to learn. So like you have said, Q&A, The formula is you can raise your arm and then we can maybe choose you and you can ask a question or ask for clarity or maybe supplement and suggest something. But also you can use the chat just in case you're not able to be verbal and share your reaction verbally. On the chat, I already see someone is asking for the recorded session. I think we'll be sharing that shortly after this. You can drop your email on the chat. I see a question from Sandra and she says, what if my company does not qualify for VAT? Can I freely use EFRIS when have not registered for VAT?
So can I start with that one?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much for that. What happens, as I had clearly mentioned, for EFRIS, the gazetted clients are those that are VAT registered. When I talk about gazetted, I'm implying that those have to mandatorily use the EFRIS platform. They don't have a choice. But in the event that you find yourself or your company does not yet qualify for VAT registration, because VAT registration has a threshold, you could equally apply or register for EFRIS. But what you're going to do here is you'll be issuing an e-receipt. E-receipt implies that you will not have any VAT component in it. Unlike the other person who is VAT registered, what they'll be issuing will be an e-invoice. Whenever whenever one talks about an e-invoice, it's very clear that it has an 18% component in it.
Well, thank you for the feedback. I don't know if Sandra, that's enough. Sure. So you can please send in your questions on the chat, or you can raise your arm and we can be sure to give you some space to share. Then there is a question here that says how a trade discount or credit adjustments treated on EFRIS.
Trade discounts or
credit adjustments.
Okay, credit adjustments. What happens when you're on EFRIS? When you start the process of invoicing, the first page that comes through when you have selected the different items, because you select item by item, while you're invoicing, it's like you're dealing in a number of drinks. You select the soda, maybe Fanta, indicate the quantity, the price at which you're selling Hafsah, then the amount will auto-populate. So you do that for all the items that you're going to invoice on that particular invoice. So what happens after you've done all that, before you move out of the page, we have icons up there on the page, just because this is not a practical session. I would have showed it to you practically, whereby when you click on modify, it will activate all the fields that are inactive. That's where you will see the discount bit of it. Once you click on discount, it will create a pop-up window that will ask you, are you giving this discount in percentages? If it's a percentage, then put it there. If it's basically an amount, then you put it there. So it will do the arithmetic by itself, and it will reduce the invoice amount by that. And clearly it causes a line item like any other item that you have invoiced. If you have invoiced 1, 2, 3 items, it will be the third line item that will be caused when you're invoicing, so that it's clear that this was the price, but however you negotiated and probably got a discount, or you bought in bulk where they had to assign you a discount as the agreement was. So it's already catered for when you start using the EFRIS platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that was clear. We have some more few questions on the chat. And Ian is saying, what happens for sales that we invoice while purchased using receipts and not EFRIS invoices?
What happens for sales that you do what?
That we invoice while purchased using receipts, not EFRIS invoices.
What happens in the event that you are VAT registered? What you need to do is to insist when you go to purchase, when you go to expense, ensure that you are given an e-invoice, provided you are purchasing or you're expensing to somebody who is VAT registered. Do not accept a document that is not an e-invoice, because when you come to the filing in itself, the template for VAT has been locked in that it will accept only physicalized documents, either physicalized receipt or a physicalized invoice moving forward. So we have to be very keen, and most especially if you're VAT registered, you have to make sure that you be very clear on that, because you'll end up losing out on your credit. And once you lose out on part of your credit, that means it will give you a higher payment of tax that you wouldn't have, because that credit normally helps you to reduce on the payable.
Well, thank you very much. I think also that is clear. Allow me invite Ian to, Ian, if you can please unmute and share some of these questions, because the way I'm reading them, they are also somehow not connecting for me, but you can please use the mic. Thank you. Yes, Ian, if you can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, we can.
Sorry, my volume is just a bit low. Hello?
I think it's okay now. We can hear you clearly.
Yeah, I just had two questions for Madam Hafsah. I think what I shared in the chat, like she has explained, I think it's clear. I lose out on the input tax, but I spend more on the output tax if I
Exactly.
I invoice without actually getting an EFRIS. However,
if you
I've been
accepted.
having a few challenges, most especially if you're doing an import, updating that document in the EFRIS system has always had issues. And also when you're returning, when you're submitting a monthly return. Yes, I don't know if that has been resolved, because it asks for the customs number and it does not accept it actually when you're returning.
What happens, the challenge that used to be there on the customs side, normally when you import, ideally we had designed it to be an export of data automatically onto your account. But what we had forgotten is we have clients on the customs side that do groupage. And normally when you're doing groupage, it's led by one person. So we want you as an individual, when you bring the goods here, when they're under groupage, you warehouse. So if you warehouse, that means you're going to clear on your team. Two, for the imports, the other challenge that used to have is we would request, normally when your clearing agents clear and give you the goods, there is something they were forgetting to do in their system. We were requesting them to exit this particular transaction in a SCUDA. Once they don't exit it, it cannot create an FDN. And an FDN is what replaced an invoice number. It is what you're going to pick on when you're going to file your VAT return. So short of that, that's when at times this transaction keeps on bouncing on your template, and it doesn't agree, it doesn't accept when you put it there. So at times you fail to file including it, because if that doesn't happen on the clearing agent side, then ideally this side there's something that hasn't been completed. So if that happens, I don't imagine there should be any other issue.
Yeah, I think that's so. You're saying we should insist to get a PRN from them? Is that what you said?
No, tell your clearing agent to exit this transaction, this entry, to exit it completely in a SCUDA. When they exit it completely, then it will cause an FDN number in a SCUDA, and this is the same FDN that has to be auto-populated in the import report that we avail in EFRIS, so that at the time of filing, you can just pick on that report and equally file, including these imports.
Thank you. I think that's clear for me.
Well, thank you very much. Looks like also time is fast spent, but we'll take another question. I can see Ahmed is asking, what happens if a client who is VAT registered pays for the services, including 12% VAT to non-VAT registered company?
Maybe what I want Ahmed to put clear, VAT is at 18%. I don't know what he's talking about if he's giving me a different rate. Maybe he needs to put it very clear, because VAT is at 18%. So I am not understanding what he meant by that percentage. Well, I don't know whether it is a combination of withholding at 6% and then probably VAT withheld at 6% to make the 12. I'm trying to understand what he meant.
Well, hello, Patrick.
Hi,
hello.
Ahmed. I can hear you. Proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. To clarify on that, in case a client pays the VAT, which is 18%, yes, but he pays 12% and retains 6%.
Yes, the VAT withholding mechanism. Yes. What happens?
Well, what happens if that client who is a VAT registered is that 12% and retains the 6% to a client who is a non-VAT registered?
There is no way. There is no way they can withhold from you VAT when you're not VAT registered. It starts from you because you're VAT registered. You have invoiced inclusive of VAT. So you're supplying somebody. That somebody you're supplying is a designated withholding VAT agent. That is when at the time of payment, they are going to withhold 6% of the taxable value, not 6% of the 18%. So that's when they withhold the 6% portion and pay you only 12% for VAT. But it remains your credit because this agent who has withheld from you at the time of payment is going to file their return for VAT, the normal return. We included 2 extra schedules. Schedule G1 is for you who has withheld. They have to list all the people they withheld from and the amounts. Then after that, they will go to the portal generator payment slip under the tax head VAT withheld. And you, the person they've withheld from, you will fill G2, then show us all those who have withheld from you. So ideally, when that person does their work and file at the end of the month within the 15 days, they will make that payment. Once the payment is made, it includes your credit because at times they haven't withheld from only you. So ideally, it will cause a notification into your email to show you that you have a credit. But the arrangement of utilizing the credit so far will be in your ledger here in URA. We are trying to design tax credit certificates that can come through, but we are not yet there. So ideally that credit goes onto your ledger and helps you to reduce on what would have been payable at a certain point in time. So ideally, I don't see how you withhold from a non-VAT registered. Then when did they invoice you inclusive of VAT, yet they are not registered for VAT? Because with the introduction of EFRIS, it's one of the controls. We want you to invoice inclusive of VAT because we are very sure that you'll pass it on to URA through your VAT monthly return.
Well, thank you very much. I think Ahmed, that was clear. We are taking just one last one from Peter, and he says, Please advise me on a small juice producer who is failing to supply a supermarket because not VAT registered, hence no EFRIS.
I clearly said that in the event that you are not VAT registered and you feel you need EFRIS, because one, your clients need a physicalized document, and that will be an e-receipt. Feel free to register for EFRIS. When you're supplying these supermarkets, as you supply them, you will serve them with an e-receipt. An e-receipt is already a physicalized document, but it doesn't contain VAT. There is no 18% component. That is the only way you can maintain your client, who is a supermarket. You can maintain your business relationship, because the reason why they push you to giving them a physicalized document, because at filing returns, their return will not validate once they input a document that is not physicalized. So feel free to register for EFRIS, even though you're not VAT registered. It is okay. We accept that.
Well, thank you for the feedback. I think that was clear, and that very much brings us to almost the end of this conversation. But maybe, Madam Hafsah, your last remarks to the entrepreneurs on the call.
To the entrepreneurs on the call, I would like to advise them, ever since we rolled out EFRIS, in the event that you qualify, you're one of the gazetted items you've VAT registered, ensure that you invoice through the EFRIS platform, because what has happened this financial year in the policy amendments 2020 to 23, the budget, what we pronounced in the budget, we have put more energy or more efforts purposefully on penalties. We are upping our game on penalties, most especially penalties around EFRIS and digital tracking solution. So ensure that you do not fall prey of those penalties, because they are quite harsh. Please ensure that if you're eligible and if you fall within that bracket, please register. And as you register, ensure that you issue out the right document. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And that very much brings us almost to the close of this session. Thank you, Madam Hafsah, for the presentation. It's been enlightening and educative. And I think that the entrepreneurs that have been on the call have been able to.
There is one who has raised something here, okay, that we support to give TCCs. TCC is a tax clearance certificate where URA clears you of your tax issues or your compliance. And compliance, it falls into folds. It falls in the return filing, it falls in the payment. So you also do a self-check on your business transactions. How good are you? Have you filed your returns up to date? Have you made payments up to date? If the payments are not made up to date, do you have any running MOU with URA that suggests that you should pay in installments? Maybe if you have a liability. That is basically what we are looking for, and as simple as that. Once that is done very well and your profile is okay, whatever is there is correct, then there is no reason why we deny you the tax clearance. But what happens, you come to apply for it on the last day. So as you're trying to do the checks, everything is not in order. So that is when we deny you the tax clearance certificate.
Well, thank you very much. I think also that is clear, and thanks for keeping tabs on the chat. I had missed out on that one. I also see Peter saying very insightful discussion. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to echo a few things that we do as Einstein Rising as we close this call. We run the Social Enterprise for Africa Business Accelerator program, and we are looking for social businesses that want to move from one level to the next. And in this program, we offer you access to tailored business development tools and pitching platforms for you to be able to get some investment or funding. We have 2 weeks free of charge, but you can as well upgrade to the paid version where you get tailored business support. Also, another program that we run is the skills training and employment preparation program. Here we work with youth and youngsters that are trying to build their careers. We host international interns from different parts of the world, and they work together in helping enterprises better their operations and business processes in different disciplines like finance, human resource, communication, name it. We also do have the MACA project, and MACA is Measures Against Climate Change in Agriculture. We work closely with Busoga Kingdom, and the project is in Busoga region. And the aim for MACA is to help farmers be able to transform and leverage technology in agriculture, but also embrace digital financing or digital saving to be able to improve their livelihoods. We all know that agriculture employs the biggest number in the country, but also there are lots of losses that are made due to the fact that there is a lot of food waste. And in our cold chain development project, we are trying to research and build cooling solutions that are sustainable and effective. And so far we have the zero energy cooling chamber that we are piloting in Kayunga district. So in case you are interested in that, you can as well reach out. We also do have an online television, and that is SETV Africa. And it's a platform that is putting together information from different business ecosystem stakeholders, like maybe URA and a lot of others. And we tailor this into programs that we share weekly on our YouTube channel. That is at SETV Africa. You can as well check us, or you can reach out to us if you want us to cover an innovation that you do as a business. Yeah, the masterclass is organized in partnership with OVO, and also this time around we've had URA and a lot of other partners, like you can see, SETV Africa, Elgon Fresh, Techbuzz Hub, Barefoot Law, Wilmar Development Foundation, and Copal. Yeah, so that said, I think we have all benefited from the session where Madam Hafsah has been taking us through the EFRIS, and I think that we all now accept that it is a solution to businesses and that we need to embrace this technology because it's helping us cut costs and maybe do the receipting better in a digital way and keeping all of us in the room. Like she has said, that there are some new repercussions to those that are looking forward to default. So I think not to be caught on the other side of the law, it's better that you embrace the system. Once again, thank you, Madam Hafsah, for making time to speak with us. We know at the start it was a bit funny because you are still engaged, and we thank those that hung around to wait for this session, and I think we have all benefited extremely. We will host URA next time, and we'll be looking at the different tax policies and everything that is in their mandate so that we can help you entrepreneurs be able to be tax compliant. That's it. Thank you guys for attending. Once again, my name is Patrick Soremba, and I wish you a good night till we meet in the next masterclass. Follow us across all social media platforms. We are at Einstein Rising, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and also at our website, www.einsteinrising.net. Thank you. Bye-bye.